Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today we're going to talk about fires on your model railroad. So stick around for the video and I'll give you some tips on installing DCC and DCC wiring so that it won't contribute to a fire on your model railroad. So let's get started. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Now first, before we do get started, I want to say one thing. I am not a fire professional. I am not a firefighter. Never have been a volunteer firefighter. Never have had to put out a fire. So if there is any of you amongst the viewers who are firefighters, firefighter professionals, please weigh in with your comments on this very important topic. And tell me, if I get something wrong, let me know, because I'm the first to want to know. Okay, so what is this based on? Well, some of you who watch Ken Patterson's videos probably saw that he had a fire in his model railroad back in December. And basically, I'll just briefly go over it, but I'll put a link to that video above me here, one side or the other, and you can go back and take a look at it if you haven't seen it. But briefly, what happened with Ken was, back in December, I think it was December 13th or so, he and some friends were running trains in his model railroad, and they finally quit and the guys left. And after that, Ken decided he was going to continue running trains for a while after they left. So he set the layout up for continuous running, started a train running around the layout, and then went upstairs to make a cup of coffee. Well, after a while upstairs, he and his wife started smelling smoke. So Ken and she looked around. They didn't find anything upstairs that could be the cause of it. So Ken went downstairs. And the following image is what Ken saw when he got down there. And you'll notice in the far back left, you can see the flames licking up the side of the wall from the layout. Now, fortunately, Ken had a fire extinguisher down there and was able to put the fire out. And initially, he thought the fire was due to faulty wiring in his paint spray booth. And then, not long after that, he started looking around on the layout, and what he found was that he had actually forgotten to set one turnout for continuous running. So what happened was, when that train came around to that closed turnout, the locomotive hit the closed points and either derailed or at least shorted out and just sat there, causing a dead short. And Ken assumes now that that is the cause of the fire. Now, I don't know one way or the other. It would take a lot of research into things like Ken's wiring and the way his layout was set up to really get an understanding for whether or not that was the fire. But at any rate, one of the viewers who saw that asked me to do a video on DCC safety and how you can set up your DCC system and wire your layout so that you won't contribute to a fire on your layout. So let's go ahead and take a look at that question, okay? What I have here is a DCS 240. And as I remember, that's the same unit that Ken said that he had in his basement. Now, one of the things that's very important about DCC systems and command stations is when a short occurs on your model railroad, they will instantly detect it. With the Digitrack systems, they will respond and cut off power to the track within 1/8 to 1/2 of a second. And you can set it up either way. You can set it for 1/8 or 1/2 if you want a little bit longer time for the system to react. And there are reasons for that I've talked about in the past. But at any rate, so the first thing that happens then is in the Digitrack system, you will hear 4 beeps in a row, 4 short beeps. Beep, 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 beep. And that indicates that it has detected a short circuit and has cut off power to your track. Now that's very important, because if you've cut off power to the track, then there cannot be a condition on your layout where the track gets so hot at that short that it can cause a fire. Now, other DCC systems don't use the beeps. They use flashing lights or something else on the system to show that they have a short circuit. Of course, the real indication is if you're running a train, all of the trains in the affected block will stop running when you have a short circuit, because command stations turn off power to the track. And I can't say that enough. That's very important. If the system is operating properly, it will automatically shut off power to a short circuit and you won't have any problems. But there's at least one case that I can tell you about in a minute that will defeat that safety system of the DCC command stations. But first, come on in here and take a close-up look at how this works. So here is my DCS240 command station, and this can operate either at 5 amps or 8 amps, depending on how you set it up. If you do the math, when you have a short circuit, that is 5 amps at, say, 15 volts, gives you what, 75 watts? If you've got it set up for 8 amps, that's 125 watts. Now consider the amount of heat that is put out by a 75 watt or a 125 watt light bulb, and that gives you an indication of how much heat can be generated at a short circuit if power is not cut off by the DCC system. As I said earlier, as long as it's set up properly and wired properly, you won't get that happen. So let me show you how this works. So I'm going to turn the power on so you can see everything's up and operating. You can see that right now this one is putting out 14. Let me go in a little bit closer for you. There you go. You can see we're at 14.78, volts on the track, and I've got it set up with a 5 amp power supply. So we're going to get slightly less than 75 watts here. Now I have that connected to this piece of track right here. And what I'm going to do is I've got this coin, and I'm going to take this coin and I'm going to lay it across the track. And I want you to watch and listen and see what happens. You heard the 4 beeps. Notice there's no power at all on the track. We're not seeing anything. You can see this little light here flash. That's because the system is trying to reestablish power. If you look back over here, you'll see the track status light on the command station will start to blink. That's that green one on the far right. When I put my coin on here, you get the 4 beeps. This goes out, and if you watch, the track status light comes on about every second. As long as your command station is detecting a short circuit and shutting down, there will be no power on your track to cause a fire. Now, you can use this to your advantage to test whether your layout is properly protected and set up. All you have to do is take your coin or your screwdriver, whatever you have, piece of metal, go around your layout, all the way around your layout, and every few feet, test it. If you find a spot on your model railroad where it does not shut off power, then you've got a problem there because you could potentially get a hot short at that location and you need to fix it. Okay, so I said that there is at least one set of conditions that can result in the command station not detecting a short circuit and not shutting power off. What is that? Well, if your main DCC power bus is far too long, or if the diameter of your wires is inadequate, too small, then the high resistance from all of that wire and all of that small wire can combine to prevent your command station from detecting a short circuit. If you go around your layout and use your coin or whatever, I call this a portable short because you can just carry it with you, and you can test it. And if you find any spots on your layout where your command station does not shut off power, that means that your wiring is inadequate at that point. And you need to go back and reconsider how you've wired your model railroad. It might be that, as I say, you've just got too much wire running out there. Remember, keep it under 30 feet long. That's best for your power bus. Keep it under 30 feet and use the properly sized wire for your model railroad. For HO scale, I recommend 14 gauge. If you get up to O scale and larger, you're definitely going to want 12 gauge. You might even need 10 if you're getting out in garden railroading and running long buses out there. And of course, with N scale, you're going to get down to something around 16 gauge or 18 gauge possibly, but I'd stick with 16. So those are the recommendations I'd have. Get your wiring short enough, under 30 feet, no bus runs longer than 30 feet, and use the proper size wire. So those are that's the easiest way for you to avoid this problem of hot spots on your model railroad caused by short circuits. I'll say it again. As long as your command station kills power to the track when it detects a short circuit, you're protected because there won't be any power going to that short circuit. And just as an example of what can happen, let me show you this image. Now this photo here was taken of a Stewart, I believe it's an FT locomotive, by a fellow named Rex Beisel back in 2004. And you can see, if you look close at that the truck there, the side frames are partially melted. And that's how hot it can get at a short circuit. Those side frames got so hot they melted. Fortunately, he didn't leave it there long enough for it to burst into flames. And remember, there's so much on your model railroad that's flammable. I mean, you start with the benchwork that's made of wood, your sub-road bed made of wood, your road bed made of cork or foam, and believe it or not, even some ballast. I've been told that Woodland Scenic's ballast is made of ground up walnut shells. Think about that. Also, the plastic ties between your rails. Your buildings, be they laser cut, they're wood, be they plastic buildings, they're plastic. Your trees, your ground foam that you use on your model railroad for scenery, all of that stuff is flammable. So once you get a small flame going, it can spread quite rapidly through a certain area on your model railroad. Okay, say you do have a fire. What can you do to protect yourself in those cases? Well, the first thing, and this is something I think is very important, get yourself one of these. Right there, that's a smoke detector. If a fire were to break out on my model railroad right here behind me, that smoke detector is going to start beeping. That one up there has been up there since March 1st of 2016. So March 1st, I've got to replace it. I've already got a replacement for it right here. And Ken admitted in the video that he did not have smoke detectors downstairs. So had Ken had smoke detectors, then it probably would have sounded off and he would have heard that long before flames burst out. So make sure, I've got that particular one that I just showed you. There's another smoke detector in the utility room. There's another one at the entrance to my garage. And there's another one at the top of the steps going up to the first floor. So I've got 4 smoke detectors that are going to alert me if a fire starts down here or if wires start smoldering or anything. So I think I'm pretty well ready for that case. Then if you come down and you find a fire like Ken did, then make sure you've got some of these. Ken fortunately had a couple of these downstairs and he was able to put out the fire using a fire extinguisher. So he got very lucky in that case. And know how to use it. Make sure you know how these things work. You don't want to be fumbling around with the instructions, trying to figure it out when you first come running down and there's a flame going on. And of course, the most important thing is never ever walk away and leave your model railroad powered up and running. That's a big no-no right there. And what I do is I have these right here. These are a remote controlled switch. See if I can show you that. Yeah, it's a remote controlled switch and I've got a little remote right here. And it's got 5 buttons on it. I bought this in a pack of 5. And I have one of these that I use to turn my command station on and off. And I have another one over on my workbench that controls the power strip for my lighting over there and for my soldering iron and any other tools that I've got plugged in. So if I'm getting ready to leave here, leave the room and go upstairs to get coffee or do something else, then all I have to do is hit the buttons here, the off buttons, and that turns off power to the layout, turns off power to anything plugged into my workbench, so nothing is powered up after I leave this room. When I come back down, I can just turn it back on again with a push of a button. And I talked about these in a previous video about 4 years ago, and I will try to find that video and put a link to it at the end here or above me. But so I think these work very well, and they're worth the investment. Makes it real easy. If you don't have a master kill switch for your layout, and most people probably don't, then this makes a very quick and easy way to set something up so you can kill power very quickly and easily using a wireless remote control device. And I've been using these here now for about 4 or 5 years. So I'm sure there's other tips that people have. Please wade into that in the comments. But most importantly, be safe when you're doing this because, as I said, there is so much down here in your model railroad that is potentially flammable, and there are right ways and there are wrong ways to wire a model railroad. So that's it for today. Have a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you here with another video from the DCC Guide pretty soon. Bye now.